Crusade Radio Network, we are live at Turning Point USA's AmFest, or the American Festival here, from the Phoenix Convention Center in downtown Phoenix. We actually are in downtown Phoenix. And we have been visited by so many wonderful people today. Special guests, old friends. Colonel Rob Manus came by, and new friends that we've made, like Josh Bernstein here. We're going to talk about Josh's book and the Constitution. Remember to tap that subscribe button down there so you're subscribed to the channel. And you can make a tax-deductible donation to our nonprofit, the Crusade Radio Guild, at crusadechannel.com/donate. So let's talk about preserving liberty. Bold and brave solutions to America and create permanent freedom. So Josh tells me there's 10 legislative proposals in here.
There's 10 legislative proposals. Congressman Paul Gosar, a good buddy of mine, did the foreword to the book. So when he reads it, hopefully he'll introduce some of those examples of legislation into Congress. Good buddy of mine, Roger Stone, also endorsed it. And for its constitutionality and authenticity, Alan Dershowitz, the great defense attorney, also endorsed the book as well.
Even though he used the word democracy.
He did. He used the word democracy in an interview with me, and I said, sir, with all due respect, I know you're a constitutional authority and scholar, but America's not a democracy, and kind of explained that we're obviously the constitutional republic, and I'm sure he knew that too. But anyone that does an interview with me, if they use something that's off, I have a responsibility to my audience to make sure that they know that things are being absolutely accurate and corrected.
Most people don't know that, actually.
Well, that's true. And, you know, why do they
that's
call
why
it...
we're in the pickle we're in.
That's why they call it... Why do they call it a democracy? Because in a democracy, you have mob rule. You don't have individual rights. But in a constitutional republic, you obviously do have individual rights. And so maybe if they're trying to take our rights, they want us to think we're in a democracy so that when we lose them, well, heck, you already lost your rights. It was a democracy, not a constitutional republic.
Let's talk about one of the things that you were telling me before we came on, and that's the FISA court.
Yes.
Okay, now, it is true. So let's walk through this using the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 says the Congress may from time to time convene courts and tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Actually, in Article 3 it says Congress can create the courts. So is there a legislative authority to create a FISA court? Yes. But I don't know that there's a legislative authority for that court to violate the Constitution and do what it does.
Absolutely true. Look, the FISA court's been around since the late 1970s. They have a 99.9% acceptance rate on spy warrants. They have only denied 12 warrants in their existence, okay? Now, who appoints the 11 judges on the FISA court? You know the answer to that?
The president.
No. John G. Roberts of the Chief Justice of the United States
Justice of the U.S.
That's his job, to pick those 11 justices and put them on the court. Now, this is a secretive court that is working in concert with other courts. It runs parallel to the United States Supreme Court, but they answer to absolutely no one, and there's absolutely no oversight. So in my book, I explain reigning in the FISA court at a very minimum, they should have to go through the advise and consent of a Senate confirmation.
Yes.
Our senators should have an opportunity to, talk to these judges and see if they are warranted to even be on this court. But quite frankly, I'd like to just get rid of the court 100%. If we can't, at a very minimum, we ought to at least have Senate confirmations for their judges.
You say in Chapter 1, restoring voter confidence and integrity. I don't know. Here's how I would go about restoring voter confidence and integrity. In universal suffrage. If you eliminate universal suffrage, then the ridiculousness of how some states conduct their election will go away, basically. So if you end universal suffrage, then you can almost just blanket out of existence most of the what they call the shenanigans that go on in the elections. We didn't have this issue. We didn't have this problem all the way up until the 1950s or maybe the 1960s. And the American public was pretty assured that elections were conducted with integrity, and that it was always same day voting, mostly on paper on election day, right?
Exactly.
But before the 19th Amendment, and then before the 23rd Amendment, and then we're giving the 18-year-olds, the right to vote. Again, universal suffrage is a stupid idea. Not everyone is educated enough to be voting.
Where did it really go downhill?
Where?
It went downhill in 2002. Why? Because George W. Bush signed into law the Help America Vote Act. And what did the Help America Vote Act do? Well, without essentially saying 100% that it did this, it federalized our elections. Now, it didn't federalize them in the point where you have to use this thing, but, pulling the carrot, right?
Right.
Look, I tell you what, let's make things easier. How about you all take all this money, you buy all these voting machines, and, it'll be a lot quicker, and a little wink, wink, nod, nod. No, they're not plugged into the internet. What are you talking about? And so tyranny is sold as convenience. And when people want to take away your liberty, they're going to make it sound like it's something good, right? In the last century, tyranny was gotten at the barrel of a gun. In this century, it's voluntary. It's in our pockets, right? It's on the internet. We're giving away our information, our valuable information and vital information. And in the book, I explain that was the first time. The second time, believe it or not, was in 2018 when CISA came around. And I hate to say it, but President Trump was the one that was in office. He's the one that signed that thing into law.
What is CISA?
Cyber infrastructure security, the one where the guy Krebs said it's the most secure election, in our history. That guy. Okay.
All right. So,
and I can go in further, but that's up to you.
Well, no. The 2002 Act obviously was in response to Bush versus Gore and what happened in Florida. The amazing thing about what happened in Florida, if you know anything about it and you remember, the case of the hanging chads.
Yeah.
What was a hanging chad? Some dumbass didn't push his stylus supposedly far enough through the paper, right, to have his
pimpled chads, hanging chads, pregnant chads. What other names did they come up with?
They had all kind of names for this guy. And we used to run a bit on the old Mike Church show in 2001. Have you met Chad? And I went over all the no, that's pimpled Chad. No, that's hanging Chad. But this is what started it. There was actually a leftist group that came out of that, MoveOn.org.
Yes.
MoveOn.org is responsible for a lot of the tyranny that we have here today.
Yep.
They raised hundreds upon hundreds, maybe $1 billion, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they set about basically trying to undo the result of the 2000 election. And I think that they were primarily successful then.
Yeah.
Because they were certainly able to through the courts and through when Pelosi became Speaker and Obama became president. They were Bush gave
selected.
Bush selected when Bush gave them most of the things that they wanted anyway, right? So it's been it's a decline. But there's one thing that's always a common: the U.S. government gets bigger.
Absolutely,
it's a common denominator.
Look at what happened with 9/11. What was the reaction to 9/11? The Patriot Act, or the Unpatriot Act, as I like to call it, and the Department of Homeland Security.
And the NDAA.
The fourth largest entity of the entire United States government. Why do we have that monstrosity?
They sold it.
We don't need it.
They sold it to us.
It's exactly right. We'll protect you, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Rahm Emanuel?
Right.
So, look, the bottom line is that our government is way too big, clearly. That's why the book is called Preserving Liberty, because I give a lot of different ways and solutions. I'll give you an idea. Here's how we could be able to switch the elections around. The left wants to eliminate the Electoral College, right?
Okay.
They want to run up the coasts, and that's the end of that, right? Republicans won't win elections. What I want to do is I want 50 Nebraskas, or I want 50 Maines. I want to proportion those electoral votes based on counties rather than full states, okay? There's 3,142 counties or county equivalents in the United States of America. Guess how much of the population lives, okay, in 148 of those?
95%.
50%.
50%.
50% of the entire United States population lives in 148 counties. So how can we sit here with a straight face and say that we
Oh, I
are
see.
a
You know what? I was looking at
representative
the math
government
from the wrong side of the equation. I get you
Right?
now. I got you.
of, for, and by the people when 95% of the people have virtually no say in who their presidents are?
Yeah, that's me.
Or any of their elected officials for that matter. It's 5% making the decision for the rest. So my goal was, how do we break that down? So you have sparsely populated, which is 10,000 9999 or less. They should get one electoral vote. You have 10,000 population to 25,000 or to 49,999, which is a micropolitan area. And then you have the metropolitan areas.
Okay.
And obviously you want to give them more electoral votes because there's more people there. I understand that. But you give 2 to the micros and you give 3 to the metros. And then you have to get 51% to be the president. And what that would do, it would give the voice back to the people. It would spread it and take it from Washington and give the power back to we the people. Because now those people would actually have a say because they actually get a count for the electoral vote.
So you're basically giving the Connecticut compromise for the Constitution, the small state compromise that was made. Okay, all right. We'll give the little states two senators. That way they'll balance the power out the big states. Because the argument in the Federal Convention of 1787, the argument was that, well, we're just little tiny Delaware, we're little tiny Rhode Island, we're little tiny New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, etc. We won't have any power. We'll have one congressional district, and we'll get screwed on everything. And so the solution was, and I think it was actually this was the wise solution. The solution was, okay, well, every state gets 2 senators, and certain things can only be done by the Senate. Only the Senate can ratify a treaty. The House can't ratify a treaty.
Correct.
And they wanted that because they wanted old, sagacious, wise people, they thought, to make the decision. When you commit the United States to a treaty, you commit all 50 states, which is why you have to have a 3/4 vote.
Right, exactly. So here's
That's
another
kind of
thing.
what you're proposing.
Yeah. Chapter 4 is literally titled Dismantling Washington, D.C. You know, what we're talking about, dismantling the administrative state, right? We're talking about that. We're talking about Doge. We're talking about 2025. This book is 2025 if it was an 8-foot-tall Bigfoot, okay? Because I take it to a much deeper level. Think about it. There are 68 square miles in Washington, D.C. Guess how many registered lobbyists are in Washington?
Oh, good Lord.
Take a guess.
You know what? I used to know this number way back in the day. 1.5 million.
No, it's 10,000, which is still a lot for that size of an area. So that means almost 200 lobbyists per person in that area. That's the type of information that's in the book. But why do we have 100 senators and 435 members of Congress congregating in the power structure of Washington, D.C., when our technology allows for Skype, for Zoom, for Google Meets? Get them the heck out of here. Let them go back to their states. Let them go to their constituents where they're with the people, and the people can be more accommodating for them, and they can be accountable to those people. So I actually talk about dismantling Washington, D.C., actually taking the people and making them so they can't live permanently within 100 miles of Washington, D.C. Now, some people might say, well, Josh, that's kind of archaic of you and draconian of you.
No, it's
well,
not.
What's worse? These people selling out our country and lobbyists and everything else, or telling these people, go home. You want to be a representative from Iowa? You want to be a representative from Alaska? Go back to your state. We don't need you in Washington.
I don't like George Will, but Will wrote a column once, and I still laugh at it today. I still think about it. You know what? The moment when Congress became permanent was in like 1925. I forget the exact year. It's in the 20s when they installed the air conditioners. and he said this is what ruined Congress, because they would meet in January, and as soon as it started to get hot, they go home.
Right.
But when they install the air conditioners, now they can stay there year-round.
Yeah. And what do they do? What do they work? 118, 125 days a year? They get paid $175,000. They want another raise. They don't even work as it is. Not to mention the fact they don't read our bills, right?
Right.
They don't write the bills either.
Well, they don't write them either.
What do they actually do? It's ridiculous. So I think it's just a gravy train. And if we don't do something drastic, which is why it says bold and brave solutions to save America and create permanent freedom, there's no BS in the title. There's no BS out there. We have got to rein in government in a way that, even Doge can't do. And the thing with Doge is, what's it going to do? I mean, it's going to be able to recommend to the House Republicans, right, that we should cut this or we should cut that. Yes, OMB is going to also be able to do certain things as well.
Should
and if we can change Schedule F back, now they're going to have a new designation so they can be fired, right, the SES. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that we can do. But I think we need to take it a step further and get them out of Washington.
Well, they should also change the Civil Service Act.
Absolutely.
You can't have a Civil
what was that,
Service
Jimmy
Act.
Carter's bright idea?
I want to say that was Kennedy, wasn't it?
I think it's signed in law by Jimmy Carter, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's in the book somewhere.
You need to repeal. Congress needs to undo the horrible damage that was done. It was just done. We just witnessed it 2 days ago by the Budget Impoundment Act of 1974. Mm-hmm. This is what creates what they call baseline spending.
Baseline spending.
So it's a law.
Right.
It's a law. You have every agency is going to get an entitlement, basically, and this is the floor, and they're going to get a COLA every year, and it's going to go up. That is ridiculous. It's preposterous that should happen. It needs to be repealed. You need to go back to legislative budgeting per department and have a bill for each individual department, and none of them are guaranteed squat. Right. That's what ought to happen here. Well, you have to have consistency. Well, I tell you what, send the consistency back to the states, and Trump likes to use the term an entrepreneurial government. I don't want an entrepreneurial government. Anything an entrepreneur can do, then an entrepreneur ought to do it. The government shouldn't do it. Get the hell out of it. Exactly. Get out of the way.
Exactly. Look, the worldwide debt is $315 trillion. Our debt is what? $36 trillion. You add in unfunded liabilities, and you're talking, what, No, it's even more than that.
220.
It's $232 trillion or something. I did the math in the book. It's like 65% of the world's debt is in the United States of America. That's not, a problem. That's life support. That is death knell for our country. And so I talk about figure out a way to start paying down the debt. And one of the things that I talk about is let's offer the people that have the money an opportunity to pay a lump sum towards the debt in lieu of ever having to pay taxes again. So here it is. There's 735 billionaires in this country, and there's 24 million millionaires. What if each one of them was allowed to pay $267,000 towards the national debt? That would be their fair share, because that's how much it cost our generation because of this debt. So what if we incentivize them? You guys pay $267,000. I don't care how wealthy you are, and in lieu of that, you'll never have to pay taxes again. That would put about somewhere around $6.5 trillion down on the debt. Now, you have FATCA, you have these companies that have offshore accounts. You've got, Luxembourg, you've got the Cayman Islands, right? There's another $4.5 trillion of American wealth that's being hidden
distributed
in there.
out there.
Right, exactly. So why not go to a 0% moratorium for 90 days or 60 days or maybe even a year on the capital gains tax? Tell them no penalties, no nothing. Bring that money back. Reinvest it back into the economy or pay it down on the debt. Now you got another $10 trillion down. Now I understand that that's putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, but we got to start somewhere. And so those are the types of solutions that are in this book.
Well, I think that's actually doable, the whole capital gains thing. Well, first of all, why do you have a capital gains tax to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you have an estate tax?
I think that President Trump was hinting at, and there was a rumor at the Cobo Center in Detroit for the People's Convention that he spoke at, and I went to. There was a rumor there that he was entertaining the idea, and he was listening to people that were telling him, repeal the income tax, get rid of it. You don't need it. You can make all the money you need to fund the government, and you'll force them to shrink it too by duties and imposts, basically indirect taxes, and then you can have excise taxes on certain things that are shipped across the states. Right? You get rid of the capital gains tax. Capital gains tax is just sinister.
It's just stealing.
It's a gain
It's just stealing
it's a tax on your success.
Exactly.
Basically,
but that's what they want to do. That's what governments do. They punish your success.
What needs to be done away with, and it needs to be done. And again, we managed. Sounds like you did a lot of research. You know this then. We managed to spend no more than 3.5% of GDP to fund the general government of the United States, which is what most of the founders called it. They didn't call it federal, they called it the general government of the United States, all the way up until 1913.
Right.
3.5%. Gee, what happened in 1913? The Federal Reserve. It was almost like we were a chorus line here and singing
Federal Reserve.
The Federal
right?
Reserve and the creation of monetary debt.
Absolutely right.
Keep printing,
keep printing.
Yes.
Right. And BRICS is an issue. BRICS is a problem because even they understand that America's insane, right? So now they're trying to combat it. So now he's got to fight against that as well. But the bottom line is we've got to get down this debt. It is a national security risk for our country. We have so much debt out there, and it's a big, big problem. And it's not fair to future generations that they have to pay for our mistakes and the things that we've done, which is just ridiculous.
Well, I assume you're going to say Amazon.
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, I think Target as well. It's through Simon Schuster and Skyhorse Publishing.
Simon & Schuster.
Yeah, Simon & Schuster.
You
can go to...
Well, I have an account with Simon & Schuster.
Well, there you go. They do the distribution. It's actually Skyhorse Publishing.
Well, you can get it at shop.mikechurch.com. I carry Posobiec and Lessex books.
You could do that?
Yeah. I carry anything from Simon & Schuster. I'm a big history major. I carry all McCullough's books.
Feel free to have that one. I'll sign it for you after the interview.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And you have a show.
I do, yes. jbushow.com, joshbernsteinuncensored.com. I'm one of the more censored people in this country. I used to be on Amazon Prime, Roku Television, millions upon millions of views, and it all came crashing down 2 weeks before the election. I was interviewing a gentleman by the name of Russell Ramsland from Allied Security out of Texas, and he was showing me live on CNN, I mind you, the 2018 governor race in Kentucky between Matt Bevin and Andy Beshear.
Yes.
And he was showing in a split second they were taking 5,000 votes away from Matt Bevin, who, by the way, should have won that race because he did win that race, and giving them to Andy Beshear. And he was telling me, Josh, this is going to happen in 2 weeks. So I took that video, I put it out everywhere, I was trying to warn as many people. 800,000 views in 36 hours. Boom, I lose both my YouTube channels just like that. Then after that, I got into it with Ilhan Omar, or as we know, Ilhan Noor Saeed El-Mi. And
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, well, James O'Keefe, who I've interviewed, and he's been on my show, he did an excellent expose on the Little Mogadishu area of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the largest Somali population in the entire world, by the way, outside of the country of Somalia. And the chief of staff for her campaign, I think we know, Barack Obama brought in 170,000 of them in 2009, I believe it was. But what ended up happening was they took a 40-minute video and they cut it down to 37 seconds, and I exposed who she was and where she came from. The official narrative on her was, she came to America for a better life to escape war-torn Somalia. No, she was war-torn Somalia. Her father was Muhammad Nuar, who was the propaganda minister for the former dictatorship, Saeed Bayar's dictatorship, that was in the process of being overthrown. So if they didn't leave Mogadishu, they would have been executed. So what did they do? They lied on their 400 immigration forms. Have you ever been part of any totalitarian or authoritarian regime? No. They come to the United States. She runs for Congress. She infiltrates Congress. I'll use those words. And she's part of CARE, which is a terrorist organization designated as such by the United Arab Emirates in 2014. She's got a lot of bad connections with a lot of terrorist groups and organizations. So I was exposing all that, and I said she should be arrested, she should be indicted, she should go to prison, or better yet, executed.
CARE.
Well, it was that one word. Josh Bernstein calls for the execution of Ilhan Omar. Even though I didn't say it like that. And the next, because even what's his name from Fox News with the mustache, Geraldo Rivera. He's tweeting at me to the FBI, arrest this guy and this and that. Meanwhile,
remember that.
I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything that wrong or anything. And the next thing you know, every single leftist just started attacking support at Roku, support at Amazon, support at Twitter, support at this and that. And within a 48-hour period, I was ghosted.
They canceled
And so
you.
for 4 years, I've been living in purgatory. I just got my LinkedIn account back last week. Okay, I was just on the Dr. Drew show a few days ago. I was telling him about it too. And now I'm hoping that with Brendan Carr being the FCC chairman, he's come out hot. And he said, enough of the censorship. He's going to try to change some of the rules moving forward so that these places cannot do this anymore. And fingers crossed, maybe I'll get back some of my accounts. But you can go to joshbernsteinuncensored.com or jbushow.com. And my tagline is, if you find it on, so if it's on social media, you'll find it there. If it's banned on social media, you'll find it at my website.
Okay, so all of this is set in motion by the Telecommunications Act of 1994. That's Clinton's baby there.
Yeah. Section 230 is part of that.
Radio, the consolidation has slaughtered the radio business. The radio industry is dead. Sports and sports booking is what's keeping it primarily alive now. And this is because Lowry Mays and his brother were basically, and all the other bigs were allowed to. The Mays brothers owned 1,300 radio stations at the height of how many stations Clear Channel had. It eliminated there was a ban. I think it was a wise ban. You couldn't own a radio station, TV station, and newspaper in the same market.
Right.
So the Telecom Act killed all that. Mm-hmm. And now you have AM radio stations that are just going offline. They're just disappearing.
Right, and they tried to do the fairness doctrine, right, during Rush's days and things like that. And it's so funny because the left always tries radio, and they always fail because nobody wants to hear what they have to say.
That's why I'm not worried about Soros buying 200 radio stations.
I mean, I agree with you on that. I do. But the thing is that he shouldn't be able to have all of those radio stations.
Well, no, you should repeal this. There's the reason why you repealed the Telecom Act of 94. He can't.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Exactly.
So that's what ought to happen. Mom and pop radio needs to come back. We used to have these gregarious, like me, loud voices on radio that made people go to radio and listen to it. Today it's just a commodity.
Yeah, I was on KFNX 1100 here in Phoenix for a bit. I was sandwiched between the late Herman Cain and I think it was Glenn Beck. I can't remember who the other host was, but I did that on Mondays for a few years. But eventually I just kind of ventured out into video work and things like that. So that's kind of what I do now, 7 days a week on my website, jbushow.com.
All right.
Thank you.
Josh,
I really greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, Levin stole the Liberty Amendments from me.
Oh, did he, huh?
Me, Kevin Gutzman, Randy Barnett, Bruce Fine. We had a conference in Washington in 2010 called A Federal Solution for a Federal Crisis. And like 4 of those amendments were ours.
Wow.
I didn't
This book's different.
Them.
It's not the Liberty Amendments. There's a lot more really outside the box type of thinking, because I don't just complain about something. I tell you how to fix it. Using limited government and we the people.
Yes.
No new government programs or anything like that. Although one I will say, I do believe that we need a transition act. Because why would a new president, whether they're Republican or Democrat, have to be subjected to leaks and traitors and people going to the New York Times and all that? So everybody in a former administration should have 30 days to reapply for their job in the next administration.
Oh, yeah, this idea that they all get to stay forever is just ridiculous.
Exactly. It's not the president's, it's the administrative
hopefully
state.
Doge points that out.
Doge does that, because I'm really hoping that he will.
All right, Josh, thank you. Hold on for a second. We're going to send you back to the stage now. Mike Church here live at AmFest, and you can get all these videos. There's 2 days' worth now that we have done here, and all my other videos. And of course, I host a daily show, 6 to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and have for 32 years. Right here, you can watch it on the YouTube network or on the Crusade Radio Network. Download the app, best app in the business. You get it right there for free. Make a donation to the Crusade Radio Guild. It's a nonprofit. It's responsible for all this here today. So back to the stage at Turning Point USA's AmFest West. I'm calling it AmFest West. Here in Phoenix, Arizona. Mike Church of KingDude. I will see you live in, I think we have one more. I believe we have one more. We have another interview coming up here. Until then, Mike Church signing off with Josh here on the Crusade Radio Network Live Talk, Campaign and Convention Radio and TV, the way it should be.